Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome and thank you all for being here tonight. And we will start off with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And just as a reminder, there is a sign-in if you'd like to sign in up front. Do we have any revisions?
Yes, I would like to add just a couple items under Superintendent Report and Board Member Forum. The first one would be item J, which is the Superintendent Evaluation. You all were supposed to bring to me tonight what area that you would like for me to work in for this coming year, and we'll talk about that at that time. And then I would also like for Kay to give you an update on enrollment numbers as of the first week of school. And those are the only revisions.
Your other trip request.
Okay, and then under consent items, and you have that, thank you, Felicia. You have a copy of it that's already been placed in your folder, and it's for an out-of-state trip for West Irvin. So that would be K under consent. And those three are the only items that we need to add.
Okay. First on the agenda, we have recognitions.
Well, we're very fortunate tonight to have some of our retirees that have retired since the spring of the year. We went all the way back, I guess, to December. And anybody that's retired since December up until this time, we invited them tonight. And I appreciate you all coming out for the reception upstairs. And at this point in time, we'd like to honor each of these individuals. And I was trying to see, yeah, there's Miss Jessica, there she is. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have the principals and supervisors come up where these individuals worked, and we'll just say a couple of quick things. We want to take a moment here to recognize them for their work and their service to the Estill County School District, and most of all, their service to our students each and every day. We're blessed to have wonderful employees in this district, and I'm very thankful for the time that they spent, even though most of them have just spent 3 years since I've been here. A lot of them have spent a lifetime, as you can see down through there, serving our kids. So at this point in time, we'll start out, and I know Miss Kelly Abney, she wasn't able to make it this afternoon, but Miss Abney worked here at the district office the last several years, and she'd also worked as a special ed assistant at the high school, and she had 21 years of service, and we'll make sure that she gets her gift later on this week. So we'll start, Miss Mullins, I'll ask you to come up, and Tojo, if you want to come up with her, and I'll call you Carl.
Well, I just want to say, when Tojo came in, I got teared up. I have missed him terribly. I just about can't talk about it. Tojo's been with me since I started at Estill Springs in 2003. So Tojo's more than family to me. He's my friend. He actually tried to leave me. This is my 6th year. Estill Springs, was it year 2? You decided that was when you thought you was going to retire? And before we had the paperwork signed, he said, I'm going to change my mind. So he's been with me the whole time. His presence is not only missed by myself and the office, but his presence is most definitely missed among the students. He knows we love him, that we appreciate him for being more than just a janitor. We talked about that in opening day last year. None of us are just a teacher or just a bus driver or just a janitor. He took as big of a role in supporting our students as anyone else in that school. And I see others that have worked at Estill Springs nodding and can definitely say that. But we love you, Tojo. We miss you. And thank you for everything you've done for the students in Estill County. I'll make it official.
I won't hug you.
Okay.
Mildred Brandenburg is our next honoree, and I don't think Mildred is here. But Mildred was the lunchroom manager at South Urban, and we appreciate her years of service, 8 years of service in our district. And as you all know, Mildred is facing a health battle, and if you would, we're family here. Let's keep her in our prayers because she's facing a difficult time. Miss Rebecca Click, and I didn't see Rebecca earlier either, but Miss Click has been a teacher at our middle school and a counselor at Estill Springs, at South Urban, and at the middle school. And I know that she's missed as well. And Miss Click had 29 years of service in our school system. Miss Jamie Day, counselor at our high school, decided to retire in July, and she was a teacher at the middle school and high school and was a counselor at the high school upon her retirement. And we're thankful for 27 years of service by Miss Day. Miss Robin Durbin, Robin is here. Mr. Burkhart, you want to come up and
Robin, I've worked with Robin, I guess, since 2001 as assistant principal at the middle school, and we talk about the roles that we have here in the district and how we're part of a team. Robin, I go back 18 years, I guess, with of hauling our students to school. And Robin's probably gone to every school to play ball that there is east of I-75. And Robin has she served as a driver trainer. She has been a bus driver and touched many students' lives. I know we've worked. She call me as principal or assistant principal and say, hey, I've got this kid we need to look at, we need to find out about. And she was always concerned about her students, and that was one thing that I'll always remember about you, Robin.
Thank you.
And thank you. And 26 years total,
of everything.
of service. So we thank you for all you've done.
Thank you.
y'all get a picture there.
Where's the mic? Come here.
Oh, move the
We
mic
got-
over out of the way a
it's in
little
the way.
bit. There you go. Although the mic's probably looks
It
better.
probably looks bad.
Then you, Jill.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Let's be clear.
Chris would be our next Transportation Department retiree. Thank you. And Crystal, like Robin, I've worked with ever since I've been here. And I've only been in transportation for a little over a year, but it goes back to the days of the middle school because both of you all were there delivering students first right there with us. One thing about Crystal, I will say, probably one of the, I won't say most and offend anyone here, but very conscientious about driving, very conscientious about safety, and very conscientious about her kids. And one good thing about Crystal is she's going to come back and work a little bit for us here in the next little bit. So I am tickled to death to have that because I need the help. I need the help. But Crystal, thank you for your many years of service. And I've got one more, but she couldn't be here tonight. Varee Pasley. She many years of service here with the board in the transportation department, and want to wish Varee the best in her retirement.
And just know a little bit about Varee. Varee suffered through the same thing I suffered through some this spring and summer with the retina tear. And she had a really difficult time with that. And I believe she would still be driving today if it hadn't been for that. And so she's missed as well. We'll jump back up. I think Miss Terry Edwards, I saw her here. And Miss Arvin, if you'll come up. And
Just get news every morning.
Miss Arvin, if you wouldn't use the mic there where
Okay.
everybody can hear you.
All right, well, Terry, come back here with me. Well, for those of you that have not been blessed to be in a classroom or around Terry Edwards when she's ready to enlighten you, I feel sorry, and I hope you get a few minutes before you leave tonight. Terry absolutely just lit a fire, a love for education in so many kids. She used themes a lot, just really managed to pull so many things into common ideas. Another powerful thing that Terry does for our schools is she is a prayer warrior for our schools. And she has absolutely touched children's lives through her work with Fellowship of Christian Students and has already been missed. Kids have already said, when is Miss Edwards coming to help us pray? They're just ready for you to do that. Also, I'm telling you, I don't know, I'm going to have her on speed dial because she gives me the weather updates and make sure that I know what's happening and that I am prepared. I hope she's happy to know I've put my rain boots back under my desk so that even if I don't have your forewarning, I'm ready.
I'll let you know who's on the property.
Yes, that's the other thing. Security for the district, I think she should still be on the paycheck. I'm getting calls. Miss Arvin, did you know so-and-so's on the grounds? You know, we got somebody in the back. She's awesome. So, Terry, she knows I've already been texting her. We just miss her. And I'm so thankful that I have had an opportunity to work with Terry. And I feel very blessed that I'm the one that gets to hand her this. And we wish her the very best. I love you, Terry.
I have a funny to tell. No. it's
Okay,
not.
thank heavens.
I grew up with my dad being in education, and school is just second home. Well, where you live right next door to the school, I'm so used to going through the gate, and I pick up trash, and I work on flower beds, and so I've had to write notes to myself, do not enter this territory, and I hate the thought of I'd lose my pension over trash. But it's been a wonderful 27 years.
I love you,
Thank
Terry.
you all.
Thank you.
And maybe I shouldn't say this, but that's what the governor thinks you are. Is that nice?
Calm down, Mr.
No.
Sailor.
No political statements here tonight, okay? Miss Jeannie Elkins is not able to be with us tonight, but Jeannie worked here as a payroll clerk, accounts payable clerk here in the district, and Jeannie was here in the office when I got here, and we've missed her around the office. She came down to see me every day because she always had something for me to sign, some PO or some bill or something to sign, and we do miss Jeannie and her service to our school district for the 10 years that she was with us. I'm going to ask Mr. Winkler to come on up, and he's got several to recognize just tonight, but Mr. Ronald Frazier, I don't think made it tonight, and he has 11 years of service as a custodian at the high school, and I know he's missed very much. Miss Nettie Markham was also a custodian at the high school, 31 years that Nettie spent in our schools. And then Miss Melissa Neal, I didn't see Melissa come in either. And Melissa was a teacher and a counselor and a librarian at our high school with 28 years of service. I don't know, Mr. Winkler, if you have anything to say about those three individuals, but
Well, let me look for Frazier. He might be in the hall. No, great individuals, and we were very fortunate and blessed to have their service, and they really missed. But like Mr. Saylor says, there's always somebody ready, willing to take your place and jump right in there. So we haven't missed a beat, but they're great individuals, and we do appreciate their years of service to our community.
and then of course you got Miss Sandy
We've
Moore
got
here.
Miss Sandy Moore. Come on up here, Sandy. I'll go ahead and hand it to you, then I'll say a few words. Now, working with Miss Moore the last few years has been very educational for me because, quite honestly, she was the only person older than me in the building. So now I've lost that advantage. That hurt a little bit, woman. You know, and she tells me she's going to sub. Now, if you're familiar with Faculty Food Day, we can always depend upon Sandy. So we're going to make sure that when we have Faculty Food Day that she's subbing at the high school. So I'll send you out the schedule, Felicia and Peggy. You'll have the schedule too, because she makes the best banana pudding that you've ever put in your mouth, and her chicken salad is great. Now, do you make it or buy it?
Make it.
Okay, I wanted to make sure because, but she is great. One thing we're looking for at the high school, and it really is kind of like a contest we're having, and I'm looking at the sign-in sheet every morning because I want to see who's getting there the earliest, because she would get there between 5 and 6 some days. She would get to the high school between 5 and 6 to get ready for the day. I guess grade papers. I wasn't even out of bed, you know, by that time. But that's how dedicated she was to her profession. And anybody that knows Sandy, she's a perfectionist. And I could always depend upon if anybody was out of dress code in that upper hallway, she was sending them to the office or she was taking care of them, because she just had that kind of eagle eye for that. But she was always good at her profession. And anything that I asked Miss Moore to do, she was always there. And on a serious side, if anybody got sick or if anybody was in need, Sandy's the first one to try to be there to help and collect donations for them. So it shows you what kind of heart she's got, and she's a wonderful woman. So congratulations, Miss Moore.
Okay, that's last but not least is Mr. Jimmy Winkler. Jimmy, you come on up. You already have to be gone at least a couple of weeks before you get to come back and get a gift and be congratulated. Almost 2 weeks, but Jimmy, of course, worked as a custodian in our district at the middle school in Estill Springs, and then, of course, has been one of our maintenance men over the last several years, and very appreciative, I tell you, of his knowledge level. Be hard to replace, because Jimmy can do anything. And we've already missed him. I know his co-workers miss him quite a bit. And I hope you're enjoying your retirement. But, man, I want you to know we appreciate your 30 years of service to this school district. And very appreciative. I think that's everyone, and I would ask our retirees if you would stay just a minute. We've got a couple other presentations, and then if you want to leave at that point in time, I understand. But I would like for you to see the next couple of presentations.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have the National Institute for School Leadership Trainees. Just to talk a little bit about what these awards are about. I think that the greatest gift that any person can give a school district is to be able to leave a legacy of leadership behind, so that those that leave can step in and replace those that are leaving. And you take in the situations we just had with our retirees. You know, sometimes it's very hard to replace people when they leave. There's a lot of experience that walks out the door. And I know that one of the things that we wanted to focus on, and it's part of our strategic planning, is trying to increase the leadership in this district. And we have a lot of teachers right now that are involved in the National Teacher Certification Program, trying to get national certification. And we've got almost 15 teachers, I believe, that are in that program right now. And we're going to have our first graduates this fall from the National Teacher Certification Program. But this past year, we've been fortunate enough to also provide leadership training for our administrators. And I want to honor two of those people tonight in terms of their NISL completion. The National Institute for School Leadership is a very stringent program. I mean, it is
program, and the two people that was in this program, I'm telling you, they can tell you that it is very demanding. It takes a lot of time. It's a lot of time outside of school on top of what they've already got to do here. And if there's anything that, the one thing that I can leave behind, it's to leave behind the next set of leaders that will step forward in this school district and make a difference in the lives of our children. And I'm blessed to honor them tonight. I'm going to ask Donna and Rhonda if they'd come up and give these two awards. The first one is Miss Tanya Isaacs, who is our Assistant Superintendent. And our other one is Miss Andrea Williams. And if you don't care, you all come up and we'll get a picture of you all together. And y'all get in there together. Hold your certificate. And because of your hard work, I would like to present both of you with a medal of excellence. And no, they didn't get one when I've got these. Felicia and I have these in a vault. And only those people that have completed programs like this and it shows leadership in our school district receive those, and our students as well. So congratulations to both of y'all.
Thank you.
The next two individuals, and I'm going to ask Miss Jenny Bernice and Mr. Bailey, if you'll come up, I'll let you all present these. The next program is the Leadership Institute for School Principals, and it's sponsored by BB&T. And we're very fortunate to have these two principals that were selected for that program. The William Smith Foundation, I believe that's correct. A gentleman that grew up here in Irvin, left here a long time ago, provided the funding. The funding for this program is like $10,000 a person to be able to attend this Leadership Institute. And that foundation, and if that's not exactly there, I believe that's the right name, and I'm pretty sure that's it. But his foundation, he's no longer alive, but his foundation that's run by his brother has supplied 4 scholarships for that program. So these are our first two participants in that program, and I'm going to ask that Miss Jessica Mullins and Miss Charlotte Arvin come forward. And we're very proud of their accomplishments and their completion of that program. Miss Arvin, you also
She didn't want to wear it.
We appreciate you for your dedication to our students, and Miss Mullins, you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just so y'all know, we also have 2 participants in NISL this coming year. And that's Miss Lisa Reese, and also I think Miss Jessica Mullins is participating in NISL. And both of those trainings are 2 very different trainings. And Mr. Stephen Willis is participating in the Leadership Institute for Principals. So very proud of these individuals for taking that extra step to learn more about their job that they do every day. So thank you. Sorry for the time.
And again, as Mr. Taylor shared, if any of you all want to leave at this time, feel free. I know.
And again, thank all of you all for coming.
Thank you.
I tell Joe.
Thank you. I think you had, I'm not for sure on class 11 markers. I know it's 3 months for certified. Yeah, October 1.
I was afraid about that since they had that. I know.
It's gonna be one of those very first ones over there. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, we have facilities and we have a construction update.
Mr. Mueller.
Good evening. Is this okay? All right. If we can, I know under your agenda here it has construction update. We have been talking about the roofing project a little bit, and so I was wondering if I could squeak in a little update on the roofing, if that's okay, if I can put it kind of under the scope. Is that all right? So here tonight we've got Brandon Henson from Riddle, and he and I have been talking about roofing material, and in specific we've been trying to address the issue about the roofing metal being delayed. Okay, we've tried to get to the bottom of where the roofing metal is. All the other materials are on site for the roofing project. We have talked to Metal Sales, who's the supplier who actually bends the metal, as well as the manufacturer, Barrage, and they're in Texas. The metal supplier's in Ohio. And Brandon, I don't know if you wanted to give a little update. You seem to be a little more up to speed than I am in talking to Barrage and the metal and where the coil is. I kind of lost track after talking to a bunch of folks about where the actual metal is that they're going to use for the roof. And Brandon, go ahead.
So basically, they are still awaiting the 22 gauge coils, which should be there at the end of this month, so that they can run them through the paint line for the colors that were selected. So we expect material, actual metal material, to be here, I'm hoping, close to the middle of September, possibly the third week. And like Roland said, we have all of our other materials are out there. We'd anticipated to done be underway. We're just waiting on metal material to get here to start. So
once it gets here, what's the time frame for finishing?
I would say a minimum of 90 days. That's a minimum. Oh yes, yes, and there just isn't any way at this point to do anything about it. You know, our colors were selected, the actual roof metal color was selected, I think, on June the 25th, and we forwarded that directly to Metal Panel Systems. The gutter, trim coil, and downspouts were selected, I believe, on the 29th or the 5th of July, and that was pushed to them on that date or the following day.
Part of that was, if you remember, that selecting that white color in the trim for Estill Springs. So there was a little bit of an approval process on that. Unbeknownst to Riddle, the trim was had to all be ordered at the same time and bent at the same time. So.
And especially for at the middle school, I think we selected the roof color on the 25th, but we had to wait until we got the trim color because it wound up being the same color, and they knew that there was a possibility of that. So they all need to come down the paint line at the same time. If not, we may have a slide-off color right next to, and we can't have that. So everybody will be saying what happened there. So that's what we're waiting on. We wanted it to be underway. It just hasn't been possible without that. Now, saying that once we confirm what day our metal will be here, for sure, we're going to plan on starting at least a week in advance with the demo and the dry back. So you'll see us working before our metal actually arrives, once we get the exact date when it's going to be.
So in response to the information, Brandon, I would ask this, that we're going to do this, is really dig into where the collapse was at Barry, because you guys are still expected to complete the roof at a certain time, and if we're going to provide some sort of time extension on the schedule, we need a reason as to why, and so we want to understand why Barrage fell through on ordering the metal, or if we can kind of get
I don't think anybody fell through on ordering the metal. What I think is, it's usually a 6 to 8 week lead time on metal when you process it. I just assumed that they would have that amount of 22 gauge at a facility somewhere that we run down the paint line, but apparently they didn't have that volume.
The 90 days you're projecting, is that for completion of both projects?
No.
Just the middle school
Just the
project?
middle school, yeah. Just the middle school. And and that's the way, I think in the contract we'd said that we'd do the middle school first and go down to Estill Springs and run through. So, but that is where we're at with that, and I don't think you have any more questions or anything.
Well, I think definitely the middle school is the one that needs to be completed first, especially some of the work that's been done in the gymnasium. We've not had any issues so far right now, but we want to make sure to get that done. I think at Estill Springs, as construction has taken place out there, there's been a couple of roof leaks that were identified and that have been addressed by our maintenance crew, and right now those leaks have, I think, been stopped pretty much. Of course, out of the two roofs, the Estill Springs roof was in better shape than the middle school roof, so I think we are in the correct order here, that the middle school roof needs to be completed, and I know that I would think, Brandon, and I agree with Roland, as you all sort of look at timeline and stuff, I think it would be great if we could, you all can get a resolution of that where we can have an updated timeline, what we need to do in terms of any type of days or whatever that we need to look at. And I just wonder, I mean, my question has been, is the tariffs on metal, has that had anything to do with it as well?
I think that is the big underlying thing here. I haven't been able to get anybody to tell me that, but
I mean, I can speak to that a little bit. It is caused the industry to go into a little bit of a roller coaster with prices. I just saw an article today where AISC is talking about 25% increases in cost and stuff. So there's information out there, and we've been seeing information come in. But yeah, I would say that it may have been a situation where Barrage was hesitant to purchase the metal, but that still doesn't alleviate the fact that there was supposed to be metal here at a certain time. And I just feel like the board deserves an explanation as to what Barrage, where Barrage was, and if it was the tariff, then they need to say it was the tariff for.
yeah, I think we all deserve that, especially us. They've put us in a spot where we've got a lot of materials setting out there that's just sitting there, and we can't do anything until we know that we are going to have some metal here. So.
Well, I think it would be appropriate, I think the board would agree that at the September meeting, by that time, that if we can have some definitive dates and then possibly a new schedule in terms of completion. Now, I do know that they were on site today. There are parts of the Estill Springs roof that is a membrane system that are between the wings of the building, and they were on site today working out a area for their materials and stuff. So I do think you all are getting ready to get started
On the
portions.
membrane portions, we are expecting a delivery tomorrow morning. I believe around 9 a.m. at Estill Springs for the membrane roofings that are there.
So that part you all are going to get started on and get it
Yes, as
complete?
soon as possible.
Okay.
Some of that we can't do until we do the metal. The area I believe that goes over is at the gymnasium there that's ballasted. Where the ballast is at, now that section is the section that we plan on doing.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some tie-ins between the
Okay.
membrane roof and the metal roof that they'll have to wait on, but they can do a majority of the PVC that would be over the gym.
So is it a reasonable request then at the next board meeting, we can possibly have an updated schedule and some firm dates?
As long
Certainly.
as I can get some information on the manufacturer and what the issue is, we can kind of authorize a schedule shift here, okay?
Y'all have any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate you being here.
Estill Springs. So the renovation project at Estill Springs went pretty well. They have completed phase one for the most part, okay? Classroom wings were finished. School started up there and okay. They had the alternate entrances for the students to get into the building. We've been working with Housing, Building, and Construction for means of egress and making sure that the building is safe for students, okay? And that project has gone very well and opened very well. Are there any questions about Estill Springs and the construction aspect of that anybody has that I might be able to help answer?
And so y'all know they did open the front entrance this afternoon. The concrete is in all the way to the front of the building, so parents will be able now to use the front entrance instead of having to enter the wings of the building. So that just happened this afternoon, right before Roland got here. So they've moved along pretty well.
Yeah, they have been working very hard. The HVAC contractor that worked in that building worked extremely hard to get that building up and running. And they were pretty successful, so.
I have one question, maybe more for Mr. Saylor or Jessica. I know we have a bigger enrollment this year with kindergarten. How are we on room? Do we have part of the building that we're not using, or are we?
We've got a whole wing of the building right now that the contractor's working in. For safety purposes, we just felt like that it was unreasonable for us to ask contractors to work in 2 classrooms at a time. So they're working in one wing of the building, which is 6 classrooms. We do right now, our kindergarten population is a little bit bigger than what we had projected. We actually have a meeting on Monday at 9 a.m. to discuss that and how exactly we're going to tackle that.
Right.
Until we sit down and sort of look at what the options are, we have lost 6 classrooms in that building out of 24. So the good thing about that is that Momentum Construction says that in about 3 to 4 weeks, they will be through in that wing. And they'll be moving over to the other wing, and their goal is to try to be finished sometime by the end of October with the other wing. And I know that's probably ahead of the construction schedule that they laid out to begin with. But from day one, they have felt like that it's their obligation to get this building back to us as soon as they can. And fall break is a huge
So they got
week for
2
them.
wings completed over the summer.
Yes, 2 wings and all of the common areas are done. Well, 98% done. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
About
Yeah.
98%?
Yeah, there's some.
The ceilings are in and
Yes.
the ductwork for the new HVAC.
That's awesome.
Which
And
is really good,
everything, yeah.
because
It
I'm
looks
used to
awesome.
starting projects like this without ceilings. So you guys fared very well. You had a very good contractor on site, and they worked very hard to get that project done for you.
And I don't know if Roland would agree with this. It's not very often that the president of the company sets up office right on the site
Yep.
and
No, it's not, that's not
and
common.
makes sure that those things happen. And the good part about it is that the 2 wings that are not complete, all of the duct work and everything is right to those wings. So all they've got to do is just tie on. I mean, so a majority of that work is done. And I know that
Yeah, all the big stuff is complete, and it's all kind of now working on the branches that go into the classroom wings. But they have all the big trunk lines are in, the big equipment's in. So yeah, now it's just kind of going through each classroom and renovating each classroom with the HVAC.
I can say this from my experience with doing this, and I did this in my former district. I'm absolutely blown away by the work that they did this summer and the effort that they put in. And I know Roland can speak to that, but they have been.
And Jeff can attest, there can be hiccups on these projects sometimes that you have to react to, and this one went fairly pretty problem free. So. Okay. Oh, yeah. It sounded like metal. Wood somewhere.
So I guess we have a pay app there for Estill Springs, and my recommendation to the board is that we would pay application number 2.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Next on the agenda, we have the bus garage.
So under the bus garage, there was a meeting on site with the Department of Education to evaluate the site for acceptance. They gave an approval for it and provided a letter that had a list of items that they want to see before they grant full approval. So they kind of gave a conditional approval. And part of those items, one is a survey and the other is a geotechnical investigation, which is not uncommon. Okay, we get this a lot from the Department of Education as far as when the district is looking at a new site. And all these requirements are there to really protect the district and make sure that things are being met, just to protect the district from getting a poor piece of property or something, okay? So the survey, we went ahead and solicited 3 surveyors to get a cost from them, and there should be a summary in your packet that lists the 3 surveyors. And if you look at the 2 things to probably pay attention to are the topographic turnaround time, or the time it's going to take to complete, and then the cost, which is all the way on the right-hand side under the total. So we are recommending S&ME. They have a quicker turnaround time of 4 weeks, and it's also the lowest cost of the 3 surveyors. So that's going to be a survey of the entire property. You're only going to have to do this once. We're also going to use that information for our engineering purposes, for the civil engineers, and for building layout.
Roland, are these surveys, are they different from like just a survey, Mary, you would have done on a property? Or is it just surveying the land and getting the coordinates and?
They are a lot more detailed. The information that you ask from a surveyor can vary a lot. Some of the things we have surveyors do are like meets and bounds, where they're checking the pins and the boundary of the property, and then they go and check that with the county clerk's office, check the deed book, make sure that the 2 things match. They reset pins, locate utilities, look for easements, and then the big thing for us is all the topography. So they actually go around and shoot spot elevations around the property to give us an idea of the grades and how the topography is going across the property. And that has a lot to do with setting the building. When you're setting a building, a lot of times you want to balance your cut fill so that you're not having to haul dirt off or bring dirt on because it's very expensive. So we always want those grades so that we can kind of help make the project more economic. Okay. But yeah, there is a lot more information in there than maybe you would for just a meets and bounds or just looking for a property line.
Any other questions? If not, my recommendation would be that we hire S&ME for the survey for the bus garage site.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
Continue. The next agenda item that you have is to authorize the superintendent to select a geotechnical exploration contractor based on a low bid and architect recommendation. We did not have time to issue RFPs for a geotechnical investigation for the property, but we have. They just haven't had enough time to look at the RFP and get numbers back to us. But much like we did the survey, we have solicited to 3 companies, and we're going to go with the best qualified, lowest cost company to the district. And if we wait a month till next month's board meeting, we're going to lose a month pretty much on design work and getting this property acquisition through the Department of Education. So there's kind of a request being done to go ahead and allow Mr. Saylor and ourselves to make a decision on the geotechnical exploration for, based on cost and qualifications of that geotechnical engineer.
And in order to save time, that would be my recommended motion.
And we will definitely bring a summary to the board that shows the numbers, and just like we did the survey, okay?
So why, did we just find out that we had to have this done, or, because, I'm not real comfortable with just saying, yeah, you can do it because it's our money.
Yeah.
It's not a good situation. We got this other one out. Was this something they just threw in at the last, or?
The survey was something we were expecting. So
Okay.
we went ahead and asked for RFPs even before KDE issued their letter. We weren't sure whether they were going to ask for a geotech or not, and they ended up asking for it. The survey, there is a water pump station on the site, and there's going to be an easement associated with that. We're trying to get information to the Department of Transportation for curb cuts on the highway. And so we needed the survey to find out where the easements are, where utilities are. We knew we were going to need that, Mr. Beckley. So that's why that was issued before. We just haven't had time to get the geotechnical out until we got the letter from the Department of Education.
Another thing, LW, that caused that delay is as we spoke with KD and spoke with the facilities branch, Mr. Dunbar is the lead in that branch. We discussed exactly about how we needed to go about this piece of property because of the fact that it's being donated to the Board of Education. There wasn't necessarily that you have to follow every single guideline that you would under a normal piece of property if you were having to purchase it. But in order to protect the board and in order to protect us in building on that piece of property, I made the decision in-house that we're going to follow the same guidelines that we would have followed if we were buying this piece of property. So thus, because of that, there's a lot more regs when you purchase a piece of property than if you already own that piece of property or if it's given to you. And I just felt like that we didn't want to get in the middle of this thing and all of a sudden find out that there's a poor soil quality that's going to require us a lot bigger expense in terms of foundation or anything else. You saw in Lexington the other day that the price of an elementary school went up $1.2 million because when they got in there and started moving dirt, there was a debris field underneath that building where that building was going to be that was a football field, I believe, long. They said 100 yards long. So the cost of the board for that, the removing that, is going to be pretty expensive to them. And we just felt like in terms of this geotech survey, we're gonna dig a few more holes because of where that piece of property is
Oh,
at.
that's a great idea.
Yeah, we
that
wanna make
location,
sure so-
because of some of the issues around it.
So I really wanted to make sure that I don't want to, next thing you know, get in the middle of a $1.78 million
We probably
project.
should have done this. That's my question. We probably should have saw this coming at the location and been prepared for it anyway. I mean, whether they required it or not. My only concern is we're on this board to be stewards of our money. And I just don't think I can support giving somebody an open, checkbook. I trust you, but my job is to watch out and make sure we're spending our money correctly. So, anyway, that's all I've got to say about that.
So it is your recommendation, right? to-
Yeah, my recommendation is that you would, after receiving all three bids, and of course, I will send those bids out to you all once I receive them out and at least talk to y'all about the decision whether or not to move forward or not. The architect will look at that. If anything is out of whack, we may have to basically reject all of them and go back to the board and do it again, accept proposals again. But if we do, we do. If that's a delay that we have to put up with, we'll put up with that delay. But they'll give us a recommendation, and I fully expect, Roland, that if they're not in line, if you feel like that they're not within what standards would be for that, then tell me and we'll
Absolutely.
reject
Yeah.
them. And
Oh, yeah,
we'll
we're gonna make sure the
go at it
prices
again.
are within what we're used to seeing and within fair market value for the work that's being expected. Absolutely.
So
We'll
that would
let you
be
know
my
if it seems
recommendation, if
unsuitable.
you all would give me the ability to do that, and I will consult with you all before I will pull the trigger on accepting any of those three bids.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, next on the agenda, we have to authorize the superintendent to hire services for Estill County District Facility Plan for 2019.
I guess LW may be the only person that was sitting here when the last facility plan was completed, spring 4 years ago, and it's hard to believe that it's time to undertake, to do that undertaking again. Every 4 years, the Department of Education requires that districts undergo facility plans and to look at your facilities and exactly what are your needs for your school district. Sometimes districts don't do them and they get caught off guard, and then they want to do something and then their plans are not up to date. It's always good to be able to have that updated plan. As you all know, the facility plan that was approved here 4 years ago, we've had to do several findings in order to get those, get the items done that we needed to. So it's time to begin that process again. And what that requires is that for us to look at a firm that we would work with to look at our facilities to determine what our needs are. Facility plan is very important, especially when it comes to urgent needs money, which is SFCC money. You need to make sure that all the needs of the district's listed on that plan, because if you fail to do so, then you're not able to spend money. And that's what we've run into, like at Estill Springs, for instance, painting. It was interior finishes was not part of that plan. So we want to really take our time and get started early, even though this is not due until it needs to really be submitted sometime around April 1. So the March board meeting would be sort of a date that we would look at to finish that process so you all can approve it in March. It has to be sent to the Kentucky Board of Education for their approval, and that meeting is usually in June. We could push it to April if we have to, but you do want them to approve your facility plan at the June board meeting, because then the SFCC funds for the next term are based on that facility plan come July 1 of 19. So it's very important we get started in that process. Basically, the recommended motion is that you would authorize me to hire for services for that facility plan for 2019.
We have a motion?
Make that motion.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. So moving on, next on the agenda, we have to set the 2018-2019 tax rates.
Okay. We got our tax notices from KDE just this past week. Matter of fact, I think it's about Wednesday of last week we got those in. And as you can see, if you'll turn to report number 1, that is the report that tells you what the rates for this coming school year. If you look at the compensating tax rate, always remember that the compensating tax rate, Roland, thank you for being here. The compensating tax rate is the tax rate at which the school district is pretty much guaranteed to receive the same amount of funding that it had received the previous year. That rate for this year is 51.1 cents. Our current real estate tax rate is 51.6 after the passage of the nickel last year. For the general fund personal property, which is your tangible rate, it is at 51.6, which is what it is set at right now. You can see what subsection 1 and then what the 4% increase is amounts to. The next page that I would direct you to is report number 3. And report number 3 pretty much talks to you about what our assessed property is. It sort of gives you an idea of the assessment of our property within Estill County. And you can see as of January 1, 2017, that there's $464 million worth of property within Estill County. Homestead exemptions was $461,000 for this coming year. And it gives you basically what your adjusted tax rate is, your net growth, and then it gives you your total adjusted property rate there. And that's what that tax rate is based on. If you take that amount of money and you divide it by 100 and then you multiply it by the tax rate, then that gives you the amount of money that we will receive in terms of our tax revenue for the school year. I think as board members and even as your superintendent, as we went around trying to sell the nickel this past year, we told our taxpayers that you give us the nickel, we'll take the compensating rate. And it's always been pretty much the, I guess it's not really policy of this board, but pretty much your the past actions of this board has always been to take the compensating rate plus exonerations. If you do that, then that means your tax rate would be 51.3 cents this year for real property or your real estate. And that would be a reduction of 0.3 cents. If you take exonerations with tangible, it would be 51.8, which that does go up just a little bit. But overall, the net result of this would be that the taxpayers in Estill County would receive a little bit of a tax break in terms of their real estate, their home property taxes. I don't feel comfortable recommending anything other than that. I mean, it's at your all's discretion. But as in previous years, my motion, or my recommended motion would be that we would take the compensating rate plus exonerations of 0.2%, and that would be our tax rate for this school year.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
And then if you'll notice right below that on report number 1, the next item is the motor vehicle and watercraft tax rates. It's 54.8 cents. It's item D, right below the second solid line that goes all the way across that same report from the front page. Report 1. This one.
And that's the maximum allowed rate.
That's the tax rate that we've had. You can't go up. That is your rate. That's what it's been now for several. It's been 54.8 cents ever since I've been here. So that would keep that rate at the same as it has been. Exonerations is not part of that rate. It is just a flat 54.8%, or 54.8 cents per $100 of evaluation. So my recommended motion is that we leave our tax rate for motor vehicles and watercraft at the current rate of 54.8 cents.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. So next on the agenda, we have consent items.
And let me just say something for clarity for the paper there. Do want to know that the tangible rate does go up about 0.2% because of exonerations, which the board, as I said, is always taking compensating rate plus exonerations, which is, I believe, the promise that we made to everybody once the passage of the nickel. But overall, property owners in Estill County will see just a little bit of a break, although it won't be that much. We're not going to basically raise taxes. So it's a promise kept by this board. Consent items, of course, we've got our minutes from the July 19th meeting. You have your treasurer report and payment of bills, and you did have one warrant that was brought to you today, and I apologize for that, guys, but as I was going through email, all of a sudden I find a bill for our Estill Springs project, which is one of the inspectors that are on site. They had submitted a payment and it was overlooked, and I just did not feel like it was fair to them that they have worked pretty much from June. I don't believe this is our first payment to them, as a matter of fact. So they've been on the job since June, and here it is August, and they've not received one payment. So I did ask Angie to go ahead and process this one separately. It is part of the BG1, so it's part of the funds that have been escrowed for that project. Continuing on down through there, the Parsons contract is a renewal for counseling services. The physical therapy contract, we have not been able to find a physical therapist to contract with for 2 years. And now we've been able to find a physical therapy group that will contract with us for our kids that need physical therapy services. Electronic access form is a cleanup on a form for all of our students and adults that use technology within our school district. That form has to be cleaned up. We have some new administrative secretaries in our school, so we need to approve the check signing authority for those. So Angie and myself and these people can get out to the bank and get signed where they can go ahead and start writing checks from the school accounts. The JAG agreement is the same agreement we had last year that Jobs for Kentucky Graduates pays us $40,000 for that program, and the board pays the remainder of that salary. It is about a 90, it's almost really probably closer to about an 88% grant, 12% match by the board. It's well worth the program, especially with the changes in graduation requirements that's coming about. That program will become a very nice program to fit into the things that we need to be able to do at our high school. Extra salary service schedule, pay schedule. There are a couple things there, and let me just point those out to you. Early on, Gear Up, of course, right now, we're waiting word right now on Gear Up, whether or not we're going to be funded. My oversight in the spring, though, is I took that off the salary schedule. And the reality is that the current grant runs all the way until September 30th. So remember, it's a federal grant, and the federal budget goes from October 1 to September 30 every year. So we're still closing out that report. So what I did is I just added back what it was originally in order for us to be able to pay the coordinator that takes care of that grant. And there's a lot of paperwork that goes along with that grant. So that's why that's been added back. And then, as you know, we've had some changes within our athletic department in terms. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So half that's based on funding is finance.
Yeah.
Is that still correct?
Yeah. The fourth, it's basically $4,000 a quarter,
Okay.
and we have already received the money, or part of that. 2,000 of that's from the grant. 2,000 that's been from the board.
Okay.
So
I just want to make sure.
we've already received money for the first quarter, which is, or the last quarter, I guess would be. Our first quarter, their last quarter, we've received that money. So if we do not receive the grant, that goes totally away. If we do receive the grant, we've already been told that within the new grant, there can be no stipend for the coordinator.
I just make sure that's an $8,000 total expense to the board instead of 16.
That's exactly right. And
Just clarifying.
if the grant goes away, LW, it will still be an $8,000, or it'll be zero if the grant goes away, but if we get the grant, then it will be an $8,000 expense to the board following through, because we will still need somebody to coordinate that paperwork. And whenever you're dealing federal money, ask Ms. Reese back here in federal funds. When you deal with federal money, there's a lot more red tape to follow. To go back to the athletic director, changing sort of how we look at athletics in terms, we used to have a district-wide athletic director, and with second thought, sort of rearranging how we think about our athletic directors, but not increasing the amount of money. As a matter of fact, by having a head high school athletic director and a head middle school athletic director, we put a little bit more, I guess, responsibility on those two people in terms of budgets and dealing with their sports in general. Our principals, KHSAA bylaws, bylaw 1 says that the principal is in charge of the athletic program, and he is the only person that's in charge of the athletic program. That's bylaw 1. So the principals need to take on a little bit more responsibility with that, and I've spoken also to Ms. Williams, even though they're not considered part of the Kentucky High School Athletic Association. They still fall under some guidance from the Kentucky High School Athletic Association. We just feel like it's best to now put each of those individuals in charge of their schools. We will add a third assistant that will work at the middle school and high school, and that actually will be a reduction in the amount of money that we have been paying in the past. But I'm also going to ask you with that $1,500, instead of just putting it back into board coffers, which, you know, we always want to make sure that we have a contingency and we're good stewards of what we have, but we have a very valid interest in middle school girls volleyball. And there are several schools around us right now, Powell County, Wolfe County, and Jackson Independent play in a volleyball league. We would be the 4th team in that league, and Lee and Owsley County are coming into that league. So there will be at least 6 middle schools playing volleyball this fall, from October the 15th through Christmas to Christmas break. And if we're going to have a good volleyball program, we need to have a middle school program. So we would just take that $1,500, turn it right back into athletics, and at that point in time, establish a position for head volleyball coach at the middle school and an assistant volleyball coach at the middle school. And just one thing on this page, no, I've not forgot, I'm under directive by next March to have you all comments concerning other schools and their extra service pay. I've just not done that yet. We're stuck under this one for this year. Going on down through there, the KSBA LGE KU thing, that worked out very well for us last time, is that KSBA, one of the good things they do, I know there seems like every time you turn around, KSBA wants something from us, but this is one of the good things that they do, where they lobby on behalf of the school districts to keep utility rates in check. Our portion of this for us to participate is $231. If every school participates, if it can't be more, or it's not supposed to be more than the $347. So I'm asking you all to commit to that amount. If they're able to hold the rate at the current rate, it will save us thousands of dollars for that $231 investment. It's a pretty good investment. And based on the work they did this past year, we're currently saving thousands of dollars this school year for an investment of less than $500. So it was well worth our investment. The high school student council has an out-of-state trip request, and it's in there. And also the new out-of-state request for West Irvin, it's in there. If anybody has any questions about those, I'll be glad to answer them. But if not, I would ask, and my recommended motion would be that you all would approve those as consent.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent item.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Moving right along. Next on the agenda, do we have any public comments? Okay. Next, we have the superintendent's report.
Real quick, just a few things for you all, and if you all have anything that you would like to add. We have the report of personnel actions. It's for your all's information only. I think that you may want to consider item B. I didn't know exactly how you all wanted to do this, but with the delay in school, and with the ideal that we had to use 2 staff work days already in order to try not to lose so much time, I just want you to see where you're at right now in terms of the closing day of school. And if you look at that, and we had this discussion when we approved the calendar back in the spring, if we had a delay at Estill Springs. So I just want you to see that right now, closing day would be the day before Election Day on May the 20th. You cannot have school on May the 21st. That is a primary election day. And you cannot have school on that day. I would strongly encourage us that we do not have school on Memorial Day. Used to, school districts had school on Memorial Day all the time, but with the recent fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq, Memorial Day has come to mean a whole lot more to our veterans, and I guess it's just brought a renewed interest in what Memorial Day is all about. And it's just not a good idea to have school on Memorial Day. So I just want you all to know right now that there are only 7 makeup days in order for us to finish school before June 1. So I don't know if you've been looking at the weather forecast, but extended weather forecast is colder than normal and above average precipitation. So we only have, I can make some adjustments. November the 5th was supposed to be a teacher work day. We can go ahead and have school on November 5th, which allows me to save one of those teacher work days, but that would still give us, and I tell you, I'm tempted to say we could have school on January the 2nd, but I tell you what, our staff worked so hard, and I know last year that work day before the second semester started was so valuable to them to come in and get ready to welcome our kids back after Christmas. I hate to take that staff work day from them because it does create, we could take it there, but if we don't, that means I've only got 4 teacher work days that we could schedule that might possibly get us to 11. The last several years, we have missed somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 days of school. So I just want you to know right now.
Well, what's your thoughts? I mean, here's the problem, and I'll just go ahead and bring up this bad word, but fall break. If you're going to do something fall break, we need to do it now so people don't make plans.
Well, and let me tell you about fall
I'll just go ahead
break.
and say it.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about fall break. Here's the issue with fall break.
We don't need to wait till next month or the next month
No.
because it's too late.
But
It's not fair.
the reason why we cannot lose fall break this year is because that all of the electrical panels, remember you did a complete electrical renovation of Estill Springs. And we are temporarily tied into the old electric service.
Okay.
So on the Friday before fall break, they will take the entire electrical grid down at Estill Springs and we'll be down for over a week.
Fair enough.
So they'll have to pretty much work that entire time to get all the electricity back up and running in that building. We'll also be changing over a water line because we did have a new water line put in that building because we've had about 4 or 5 water breaks over the
I
last
just thought that's
5
what you
years.
were going
Right.
to, and
No.
I'll just bring that up.
Well,
If we're going to do it, we need to do it
I'm gonna
now.
bring up the next thing, and that's spring break.
Yep.
Last year, we did not get a spring break. I can tell you now, and that's what we talked about in the spring, that I know that it's early, but I can tell you this, if we're gonna do something with spring break, then now's the time, in my opinion, to do it. Now, we can leave it there, you can think about it for a month, or we can pull it out and have a vote on it, whatever y'all wanna do in terms of discussion. It's always easier to take it now, so that everybody knows. Then if something happens, we have a mild winter,
We get out early.
we could get out early, or we could come back, we get the March, or we get the March and we see that we're gonna be out, we can give them 3 days of spring break or 2 days of spring break. It's easier to give it back to them than it is to take it in March. Because last year, we was February, I think the February meeting before we took spring break, a lot of people had plans. And I think if you'll roll the tape back and look at that board meeting where we discussed this calendar, we made the statement then and everybody agreed, don't make plans for spring break because we don't know what's going to happen with construction. So if any family says that they really didn't know that, then they may not have been watching or they've not heard, but we definitely had that conversation. If you take those 5 days of spring break, I'm going to tell you right now, there's no guarantee that we'll still get out before June 1st.
If we do what we done average,
We'll be doing the average, that's right. So I don't know if y'all want to act on it now, but I'm going to tell you, if you don't act on it now, you're going to have to make a decision by the next meeting.
Well, I would like to make a comment. I think some people are going to be upset if they lose spring break, but I think that's a small price to pay for all the upgrades we're getting in our school district. And I think if you're getting upset or you're going to get upset over it, you need to remember that.
Well, and we'll be facing that here for the next several years because with the new career tech facility, it probably won't impact our schools that much, but we could have a couple day delay because of parking and road improvements out there. I think that the architects can work around that as that building's built. But the final phase of renovation that we talked about is a final phase of renovation on Estill County High School, which has had 6 phases of renovation, so we'd like to put that thing to rest. With the nickel, we should be able to do that. It's a couple years down the road.
If we wait
But-
much longer, we'll have to start renovating what we renovated.
We'll have to renovate what we renovated before, which would be a whole new renovation. That's right. So,
If you went all the way to the very end of May, though, right now we're projected to get out May 20th. And if necessary, you got all the way till May 31st, and you still get out on June 1st.
That's with no snow days though.
that's with 7 snow days. We would be banking that there would only be 7 snow days.
But
In
what
order
I'm
for us to get
saying,
out
I
June
mean,
1.
you could, that makes up those 7 days. And then you said you have 2 teacher work days that you could change. So that's
9 days.
9 days.
Right.
But we've been
And-
averaging 15 and we may not this year. We may have 3, and I hope so.
We may, and there's just no way to know. My only thought process is if you tell everybody now, you can always give it back to them later. You can leave it exactly the way it is. I can tell you this, if we start going to school in June, I can tell you what your attendance is going to be. And listen, last year for the first time in this school district, or the second time in this school district, we were above 94%. And I can tell you this, when you start getting into June, kids are not going to come to school. It's going to be very difficult because testing is over with the last 2 weeks, so that last 5 days is usually makeup days and everything else. I mean, let's put it this way. Our attendance will suffer. I will say this. I'm very impressed by the fact that our parents send their kids to school. 94% for a county school district is a pretty good attendance rate. If you look at some of the other counties, especially counties that's in rural Kentucky. So I don't want to by no means shame our parents because our parents do a good job. But when you start getting into June and stuff, you do start getting into vacations and those types of things for our working parents. I'm just telling you, you don't have to make that decision tonight, but I'm telling you, I think you do have to make that decision by the next board meeting. So I want to put it out there on the table right now. And I know that may be a hard pill to swallow, but the fact of the matter is, I can tell you right now, I'm not going to bet my house on it, but if I was being forced to make a decision, I can tell you, there's no way in heck I think we'll miss fewer than 10 snow days. No way I think we'll miss fewer than 10. So just know that we miss more than that, we're into June. And, we might can live with a couple days. There's just no way to know. What I hate to have happen is people make plans for the first week of April, and then we have 75 and 80% attendance. Because when you get to April, that's when you really make a difference. That's when you start gearing up for testing. Kids get excited about testing, and you sure can't afford to have 90% attendance for those spring break days. And listen, last year during spring break, we had a pretty decent attendance rate, but we were off a couple of percentage points. What is a couple of percentage points for us? Somewhere in the neighborhood of about 50 kids. So that's 50 fewer kids in attendance. So I'm just letting you know, and I'm not telling you, if you all are not ready to make a decision on that tonight, but I'm going to tell you, my recommendation to you next board meeting would be that we would not have spring break, and we would wait until February to decide whether or not we can give days back. We can always give days back, but we can't take them when you get, or you can take them when you get there. We did last year, but it's a little bit harder pill to swallow then than it is now. So is everybody good with just waiting? I'm just putting it out there. My activity report, a lot been going on, but I'll give those to you, just see some of the things that's been going on. past month.
No.
A lot of things there, a couple of things there with school safety, which has been really on the forefront here the last few days. So those are a list of my activities. Fundraiser report, you should have those already in your packet. And I don't think we had, did we have any, Felicia? Did I flip through one? I don't think we had any this time. School safety update, and as I said, we've had a couple of school safety trainings. We had active shooter training for all of our new employees over the last 3 years. The first year I got here, we had active shooter training. So anybody that's been hired since 2015 underwent active shooter training before school started to try to prepare in case if there was ever a need for that type of training. And hopefully, with the blessings of the good Lord, we would never have to have that type of training or put it to use, but you have to be prepared. And then the second, right after opening day, Estill County Emergency Management conducted a couple of walkthroughs at the high school and middle school. And we took our high school staff and our middle school staff, and they walked through what we would do in case of an emergency. What are the different policies and procedures we have in place based on our school emergency plans. Our plans are right now is if we have school on the Monday before Election Day, and I really do think that we need to have a school day then. It was scheduled to be a teacher work day, but I really believe that we need to have school on that Monday. If we have school on that Monday, and we'll make that decision next time, then on Election Day, the teachers at Springs and West Emergency Management will be in their building for just a couple hours, and we'll let them count that time towards one of their teacher work days. But we want them to go through that same training. What happens in a lockdown? What happens in this situation? This is how we will respond. And then they'll come back to South on the last time and talk to South about how they do. We want to make sure that our schools are as ready as they can be in case of any event that would require emergency management. Just from a budget update, remember this coming board meeting is our working budget. You'll be approving that budget. The budget that you had in May, we projected about a $1.6 million contingency. We projected that we would roll about $1.6 million. We've actually rolled about 1.8. So we actually had a little better budget year than we projected, but that puts us back where we were at. It's not that we gained anything. We were at 1.8 million this past year. When we decided to buy a bus later in the middle of the year, our contingency went down to about 1.8 because we didn't have any other funds to purchase that bus. So we're really right back at contingency, and I'll be talking to you all a couple at a time, or at least one at a time, and talk to you about a couple of budget items before we get to that September budget, about some things we need to discuss, some maintenance projects and some things that you all brought up that you would like to see done. And if we're going to do that, we need to budget for them. We don't need to be sitting here and not have it in the budget. So I want to discuss those with you, but just know that's on tap. You got your membership card today for KSBA. And also the regional meeting is on September 17th at Lee County. And if you all want to go together, however you all want to go, what's going to happen, Felicia's going to get in contact with you all here in the next few days. We have to register for that. There is a possibility of getting some training hours for that. And there's like 3 different sessions here that they talk about. So be looking that over. You should have got some information by email, and it's important that if you are planning on going, that we know that, because we do have to pay a fee to go, and that goes to the local regional board. That doesn't go to KSBA. It goes to the regional board to help put on the event. Want everybody to mark their calendars. Item I, which is 12, on December the 17th of 2018, we're going to have an Irvin High Estill County basketball celebration. This is the 70th anniversary of Irvin High's 11th regional championship in 1948. And some of those gentlemen are still alive. We're going to try to get them back here to Estill County on that night. We're going to put on the black and gold and put Irvin on the front of our chest, and we're going to go out and play a basketball game in the old Irvin colors. Our band will be playing Irvin's fight song, and we're just going to invite all the former Irvin High graduates to Estill County High School. Free of charge, we'll have some type of reception for them, and we just want to have a celebration and honor those gentlemen. And if they're not alive, then we would have family members that would represent them. And then, of course, it took 70 years for an Estill County team to make it back to the Sweet 16, and last year we were able to do that, and on December 17th, hopefully we can get our entire team back and just have a night of a celebration and a community celebration, and I really think that'll be a big time, so I want you to put that on the calendar. It's going to happen. Superintendent's evaluation, I know a couple of you all have talked to me about that. You're supposed to let me know tonight what area or areas that you want me to work on so I can bring you back a growth plan. I don't know if you all have talked about that, but if you all have something now, or if you want to talk about it in executive session, we can do it then and come out of that and report it then, however you all want to do it.
I think that's what we want to do, is talk
Okay.
about it in executive session.
So we'll talk about that one in executive session, so we can pull Jay out. And well, we'll be maybe acting on that one. We don't have to pull it out because we're not approving any of those. And I'll report that once we come back out of executive session. We'll let you all know what area or areas I'll be working on. Last thing I thought would be a good thing. You've sitting here and heard me for 3 years talking about a decline in enrollment. From the beginning of the year before to the beginning of this school year. Well, I'm happy to report that we are up 8 students from the start of this school year from what we were last year. And that has a big impact on our budget, that we're not sitting here right off the bat looking at a $250,000 or $300,000 deficit to begin next school year. Hopefully that trend continues and we'll be able to stay at those levels, and that will have big indications come the budget in May. And we won't be sitting here having to cut 5 to 10 jobs like we've had to do for the last 3 years. So thought you all would like that piece of news.
So what is our enrollment this year?
2,227 right now, and that does not include preschool.
Not including preschool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure preschool numbers are not in there. They're not. 2227. Last year at the first day of school, or the first week of school, it was 2219.
And how many preschoolers did we end up with?
We will know on Monday. It's our first day of preschool, but now you all know that we have the 9th teacher, and I believe the other day we had 175, or is that where we're still at? With a few on the waiting list. So we will have almost 180 preschoolers. You can't really fill every slot, because if anybody moves in at any time that meets the federal requirement, you have to have room for them, so you can't just fill up to 180. We probably will push it, just to be honest. I'll probably push it up to at least 177, and we'll hold 3 slots and see what it goes through Christmas. We can enroll somebody at any time, and we can enroll additional students as we go, but our cap's 180. That doesn't include the 2 early Head Start classrooms, which can have up to 10 in each one of them. Is it just 7, 8? I thought it was 10. Okay, so it's 8. So we could have up to 16. Right now we don't have that many enrolled, but we're close. Right? You already have them, right?
Yeah, they've been there for numerous weeks. We have 12 early Head Start children.
So we've got room for actually 4 more. And those are diapers up to 3-year-old. It's interesting, Goldberg, and you want to spend some time with them. But I know Mr. Willis is excited to get kicked off on Monday. I don't know if Mr. Burkhart is with the buses, but Mr. Willis is excited to get started. That's the superintendent's report. I don't know if anybody on the board has anything.
No? Yes, we need a motion to go into closed session.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all.